Chili here with Sirius Talis Moon. Now the numericals are really fascinating. It was 444 on the Mula episode, and then 505, then 606. Um, and so Mercury hour, and we continue. And continue on the collective reading. Because there is a certain sort of untangling of something that has been there since birth. Identity is very important. Alignment of identity. Ooh, okay. Sovereignty, alignment of identity. Any timelines that have to do with bullying, mockery, or the lower frequency rituals. Okay? Now there is a discernment here because satire is not mockery. There is mockery and ridicule, and there is absurd and showing what is the absurd. Those that do not have that discernment think about Charlie Chaplin in modern times and showing Charlie Chaplin as basically the man that is caught up in the machine. This is not mockery. It's also not a humiliation ritual. It is a spark on the absurd. So, and this is also where I got sovereignty and identity alignment. This is a spark on the absurd, where there is a union that is not based on those lower frequency of um, mockery rituals. And here is where the energy interpretation needs to align, because yes, how did that rabbi get in here? The algorithm is funny today. So this is um, and this is also where some people might even learn that there are certain things that they had a trigger about, and there are certain things that carry a timeline of big sneeze, big truth, as I say that carry a timeline of the mockery rituals. Now, and so Mercury rules humor, and so not all there's a saying that all humor is fundamentally evil, and I fundamentally oppose that. In fact, the core of humor is fundamentally loving. And there's a difference between humor that is about humiliation or degradation or all those rituals that are meant to lower the frequency, where humor essentially is simply how something is funny. And think about the juxtapositions of the two. Okay? And And that is where that is the question, okay? Because some people are misaligned because they're used to one trajectory, and it doesn't even filter through that. And now here's the thing, that there's also alignment of the nervous system. Okay, there is also alignment of the nervous system, and this is also alignment of it's not a timeline where commands can be given in a way that violates sovereignty. And what do I mean by that? There's some people that love to give commands to each other, and as long as sovereignty is maintained, that can be, for the people that like it, that can be sexy for them. But I don't know. So, and so there is a big alignment, okay, of of the nervous system, and this is where any union that's sustained here has to be on the frequency of actual, okay, on the frequency of love. That's basically what it means. And rubbing my teeth with leaves of lemon balm, experimental things. It's really nice. Um, there's something really joyous about lemon balm, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just a plant that brings a lot of joy, laughter, joy, joy of living. And this is where the housing that it needs is on that frequency. In fact, my previous one died. And this is where it's a trajectory that doesn't allow to steal the energy. Because when this is something that drains on the joy of living of everyone. And it's trajectory where the union of energy is there, and people need to be conscious on what they manifest together in that union of energy, and both have to agree, yes, to manifest that. Um, both have to agree to manifest that. I was just thinking about certain things today. I attended to political assassination prevention, and there were, first of all, when I started, is that I did not know anything, not about the cloning project, not about the dark occult, nada. And I saw some occultistic terms, things in those death threats of one of the cases I was tending to, and it was something I said. I was trying to transmute like the energy of the dark occult, and this was something came up to do with children, and I kept saying children, 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 and There are some things that I didn't know at all. And I think just in a couple of last days, I was exposed to something. Um, and I just think about how me not knowing about any of those things and how people that were entangled in those things that knew that it had to do with those things, kind of like if somebody comes to tend to your problem and they're triggering up all those, you know, I remember when a colleague of mine said, even telepathically, it's like, when will you have children? And I started to burst on them and started attending to ritual satanic abuse. Now, this colleague was in a personality cult. And like, they brought it on themselves. They asked. So, so this is just one of these things that came up. And more on that energy. It's basically setting fierce boundaries. And this means for people that is completely changing their cultures. Everyone. But it's true. Um, think about when a Me Too came out. I remember I had a conversation with someone. She was litigating. No, I need to rub my teeth with lemon balm to solve that. So she was litigating a university and its offender. And I was just doing a satire about the cult because the litigation system is like written in Hefta. So anyway, when is she gonna say Rolodex for stress? So no, here is it. It's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. No, it's the frequency of satire. It's not the frequency. People at the Vatican like, ah. And so, what was it that happened to me today? And I asked somebody if they want a glass of water, and it was somebody from the trajectory. They want everybody. They're in a union organization where they want everybody to pay for the water. And I was just naively said, like, somebody came to me and was like, "What's happening? Do you want a glass of water to cool down?" Anyway, and I was not malefically asking that at all. It's like completely amiable energy. But this thing, that there's something of that energy. They are always the person who is incredibly so charming. You can't be angry at them. It's like, okay, I'm not angry at you. I'm just setting a boundary. Nervous breakdown. No, 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 no. Everything's fine. I'm just setting a boundary. Not that boundary. My entire pension is on trying to enslave people. You really need to redo your 401k. You really like So, um, so this is tending to the misalignment of the frequencies and adjusting the trajectory. Because, even when you think about the person wanting to do change in their lives, and they have fears, and they have this, and they have that, and this is where all of their excuses why not to change their life benefically are withering. And in the collective, it can happen between a person and themselves, or a person and another, or that there's one person um, that, let's say, one person is taking a certain trajectory, and the others are, but what's going to be with that? 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 And there is an answer to each and everything, and or there is a, well, the trajectory that you're offering is not really leading. Think about it. During COVID, Saturn was squaring Uranus, and I was in between houses, and all the solutions that were offered to me, I looked at these people, and so one lady was in her 60s, having a successful business, spiritual, and so on, and she had to collect the money for her tea treatment. She needs to go to operation. I said, if I follow advice of this woman, then in 20 years, I will still need to not know where do I collect the money to do my teeth, and probably even worse, because I haven't innovated on what the older generation did. And none of these and all of these trajectories were, all of the solutions that are offered me are the things that when I went anywhere remotely near that road, that got me to be in between houses. So I'm definitely creating rejuvenation in the plant. Um, all of these things are very much to do with the type of energies, because there's something that is almost from birth or conception or cloning for people that were cloned, um, that's stagnant, or it's been there. It's also transmuting. And I want to also pay attention to the fact that Venus opposing Saturn will only be applying to oppose Neptune. And Venus opposition Neptune timelines are the ones where, how should I say that, there is, there's a crisis around ideation and devaluation. And so with the loss that comes, there is also miraculous healing. And with the miraculous healing that comes, there can also be some sort of loss and grief, um, around that. Or something that is resolved leads to something that yet is waiting to be resolved or in the void of being resolved and so on. Another thing that comes to mind is the tending to the wound and the not tending to the wound that are both necessary for recovery. And with Saturn Neptune, we are scheduled to tend to the wound. There's something that rips off the band-aid. And that can be attributed to loss, but also to taking on sovereignty. Now, Venus opposing Neptune is a threshold of healing, grief, loss, miraculous things. It's not just loss, but Neptune is also something found. Think about finally receiving a correct diagnosis for something that's been there for centuries for humanity. I want to say something about the cloning project. The cloning project is about basically cloning a body, and they're doing it of cells of dead people that they basically preserved in some way, and using energy of children or young people, and there is a summoning. Now, I think that there were also new methods of cloning that had to do with um, having person that is born natural birth, having something that is summoned into this person. And this is yet another facet of cloning where one is not sure if it is past life of their own, or is it one soul in the body, or is that the original two spirit? Like I really don't know about these things, okay? So I just like think together with you. Um, but even with the summoning, think about many people are born clones. I'm watching JFK and what JFK wanted to do before he was assassinated, because he was building for world peace, and there was an operation of depopulation that supposedly failed, and he still, he lived in a treason cult and all of it. He would probably be on Epstein list, let's just put it that way. But it's something that a person can be born clone, but still the soul has certain trajectory. And even in the summoning, a person can be born or summoned for particular purpose, but they still have their own reason, their own soul trajectory that is beyond what people try to tie to the machine, or to tie to the electricity, or to tie to electricity. I'm getting so the true vibes. Because I got something about the energy of the true, Mark the True. And it was, I don't know if he was clone, but that there is another energy to him. There was, it wasn't in captivating because it was real. It was an energy of a person's very real that is attached to him. And I don't know this energy. And then another energy that was different. That sometimes it seems like the face has one energy and then another face with another energy. And this is something to do with something that was going on in Belgium. Also, a person that took Madeleine, he was having this energy of comforting her, that everything is okay, that everything is fine. And then he was quickly murdering her because he had to complete the mission. Usually it's not that way done. And those are energies that are like, it's, oh, it's the energy, I know what it is. You know, energy of a shaman when he hunts an animal, then the shaman almost makes an agreement with the animal that is of the nature of sacrifice. But this is not what happened, because what they did is ritual abuse, so there was torture. Because usually the shamanistic killing, it has to be actually the most remediating part for the animal, where the shaman, it kills the animal in a way that the animal, the transition is the easiest. But this was a transmutation that was taking this shamanic energy and overlaying it with another trajectory. Hello. And that's what happened in Belgium. Ook in Belgium, particularly in Europe. I don't know United States, but I saw attempts to do this in United States. It's more about caring because they're like Cancerian. But here is no, it's energy of almost healer, shaman, something that's not even ancient, but just very benevolent and loving, juxtaposed with those trajectories. Anneke Lucas also describes something like that. And the use was of the benevolent energy. Yes, there's attempt to hijack the timeline of the benevolence. Attempt to hijack. Okay, wait a second. Of course, my mother will know. Solar plexus. Solar plexus is the I am, and there is attempt to hijack the I am of a person. Those are the split timelines, but when it's within a person. And this episode began with me talking about the cohesion of that split. And some people try, we're not only good, only bad. No, it's not even that. It's about the I am. I think the entire Judaic tradition is still in the timeline of a courtesan cartisan. Because I'm not talking about the Talmud, Judaic tradition. Because they think the Judaic philosophy, we are not only good or only bad or only this. It's not even about that. It's not about good and bad. It's the I am and the honoring of the sovereignty of the I am energy sexually and so on. And the I am here is a conglomerate, but it's also sovereign, individuals and community. And we're learning how to do that in a way that's honoring the sovereignty of everyone so that we will have a sovereign community or whatever is built on that. And there are attempts to lower the frequency, but this frequency is not going down, it's actually building to cross the threshold and separate the timelines between those old trajectories. And on that basis, the separations, because it's Venus conjoining Ketu, the separations are also happening on an energy level. Any mockery timeline or residues of that are dissolving. But it's dissolving together with real estate, with currency, with minerals. And this is also how it's dissolving. Think about when a person, think about a person that, let's say they have a bad habit and they struggle to change that bad habit, or they don't even want, or they're in an environment where everybody has that bad habit. But something happens to the environment and the environment collapses. Think about the Spanish flu, where all the aristocracy died, and the only people that were left were the people that were left healthy. There were people that would either, I'm sorry, but the thieves that worked with the thieves' vinegar, and the people that were working the land. So, because they were exposed to the pathogens and had a good immune system. The thieves used thieves' vinegar, so they had good immune system, and the people that worked the land had a good immune system. So the separation of the timeline happened. And we are towards something like that, but it's also, think about something less dramatic and megalithic, although we are towards something dramatic and megalithic, um, where, and this is where a person, let's say, how should I explain this? Okay, let's say a person needed to break a certain habit, and then something happens, and they break that habit. So this is a type of crisis that, because now, but this is about those mockery rituals and those targeted individuals rituals that are basically still a continuation of the humiliation rituals, mockery rituals that had to do with colonialism. They are dissolving together with the wealth of nations and the wealth of the family and the kingdoms that practice those rituals. This is it's given the Spanish flu. I mean, I have to admit, because it's like those rituals. Is you think about the person is so busy in mockery, trying to lower the timeline of someone, and they're not seeing that their ships are sinking, or that their real estate is dissolving, or and and all these things are basically, they're just so busy targeting someone that they're not seeing that everything within them dissolves. Okay, it's kind of like their way of doing business was leading to a certain megalithic crisis that they still try to get that energy by lowering the frequency, and basically that causes them to put themselves on a timeline that is separate from the abundance timeline. And they try to leech on, but there's nothing to leech on anymore. That's the separation of the timelines. Now think about people that were working the land. They were working the land, digging half moons, working with the soil, I don't know, okay? Rubbing their teeth with lemon balm leaves or whatnot. And they looked funny, but they worked the land and they didn't have property, they didn't have anything. Now there are people mocking them, trying to take them down, trying to this, trying to that. Will you look like this? Will you look like that? Ba, 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 ba. It's like, I look lovely until I look at you. Until you arrived, everything was fine. And so, until there's a crisis that happens, and that crisis completely breaks down the whole trajectory of what they've been trying to manifest in someone's life, that is just, and this is, you think about a pack of people that are targeting an individual. And they're so busy, and they pull all the tricks, all the things from the book. That person's so neurodivergent that those things are passing behind them. It's kind of like when you fly and there's an air pocket. And you think about when, let's say you put a person there, they don't know what is an air pocket, but they know how to maneuver a plane, and from those things they conclude on how do you deal with an air pocket. So that person, let's say that it's an emergency flight and they have to fly the plane. That the people counted on that person having to fly this emergency flight, and they keep pulling all of these things. Yeah, this person is a rookie, they don't know how to fly a plane and this and that. We can drop that plane and so it will be easy. And then this person doesn't even know that air pocket is a challenge. It's like, that's the usual thing. I mean, it's a flight. The vectors do that, the vectors do that. And they align themselves with the flight. And they basically fly smoothly through the air pockets. They're not, okay, this was, and they don't even know how to name that. This was a weird thing, okay. That's in that weird thing I do this, in that weird thing I do that. And they keep aligning themselves. Now what's happening to the people that try to attack them? I hope their life wasn't depending on succeeding to dropping that plane down.